Okay, guys, before we start, I'm just going to make a big clap just so I can sync the video and audio, okay? So don't be frightened. Right. Okay, thanks all for coming. And you're no, you don't have to be around the coach, that's all right. So thanks a million for coming, guys. Basically, get back in the game. The meaning of it and the kind of purpose of behind it is, when I talk to people, they're always saying to me, I know what to do, I just can't seem to do it. I just can't seem to get back to doing what I used to do or whatever it is. So that's kind of the purpose of, let's say, this seminar, and beyond that then the challenge that I'm going to introduce you to. The purpose of doing the challenge then as well is there's a deadline, there's a timeline to it. So again, in our heads, I'm going to start, I'll do well this week, I'm going to be good and that kind of thing, but then it kind of, the week goes on and drags on and we kind of fall out of our good routine into our old habits and things like that. So the other side of the coin then is when people are saying that they know what to do, they just can't seem to do it. When it comes down to changing our shape and kind of losing some weight, losing some body fat, toning up, things like that, is, in a nutshell, it's very simple. And we all say, yeah, we know that. If I go down and interview 100 people down the street, we're all going to come up with fairly similar answers if I ask them, how do you go about losing weight? And it all comes down to something like eat less, exercise more, right? Now, that's the right information, but it's pretty much useless. It's like trying to tell someone who's drowning to struggle less and swim more, okay? Yes, correct, but it's useless. It's not going to work, okay? So telling someone, you know, who wants to change their shape, just eat less, exercise more, it's not going to work. And you know yourself again, you haven't tried those things before. So what I want to do is kind of introduce you to the methods that will help us to do that, essentially, okay? So it's the how behind the why. So the first thing is what we've got to look at is what stops you, okay? So I see some of you very studious, brought a pen and paper or a notebook and paper with you as well. For those that didn't, you can get out your phones as long as they're on silent. And I want you to answer this question, so I want you to actively answer the question, okay? This is a participation event. You're not just going to sit there with blank faces staring at me. I want you to participate. And I just want you to think about what stops you personally, okay? What do you think is the hardest thing about changing your shape, your health, you know, eating better, being healthier, that kind of thing? So I'll give you a minute or two just to come up with at least one answer. What stops you? What is the hardest thing about losing weight, eating well, being healthier? Anybody care to share one of their answers with me? Don't all shout at once, guys, so I can't hear over everyone.
Time management.
Time.
My overall time management, keeping a routine is part of that, because I know this has to be a routine to work for me.
Food cravings in the evening?
I have cooking different food for me now than what my children are eating. So time to cook 2 different meals at meal time.
Never seen a difference quick enough. Getting enough protein.
Firstly.
Motivation.
It's easier to go for things like we're used to and are convenient and
Distractions or picking up shelf course?
That's the whole falling off the wagon, isn't it? There's no wagon.
I think doing it alone is on.
Okay, cool. So basically, these are all, and again, they're all, you know, different answers for different people because they're all based on our own circumstances. Okay, so what might be very easy for someone to do is very difficult for another person to do, because we're all individuals. And as you see as we go through this, a lot of this is very much individual based. They're all also, most of these are based off false presumptions or false beliefs, okay? So for something like the idea of, let's say, convenience, and not to pick on you, Claire, but an apple's pretty convenient, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But even looking at something like cooking different meals, you have to cook different meals. The fast result side of things, what is a fast result? What's not a fast result? Am I getting enough protein? Do you need more protein? So these are all based off, you know, as I said, if I can go through these are all a set of beliefs. And if we can start to kind of knock down a lot of these false presumptions, and again, the diet industry, diet culture has led us to believe a lot of these things as being true. And I want to show you today that most of them are complete and utter BS, okay? There's a couple of principles that we need to follow. Once we're following them, there's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot more flexibility than we tend to believe. So the first thing is to understand is when we want to make a change, is that essentially we need to understand your metabolism. Because without understanding exactly what's happening in our body, it's very difficult to then influence that. So with regards to the metabolism, the definition of a metabolism is the chemical processes that occur within a living organism in order to maintain life, okay? Boring science, blah, blah, blah. But that's essentially what the metabolism is. Now the metabolism, essentially what we kind of tend when we talk about it is essentially the energy demand of all of this, okay? So how many calories we burn on a daily basis, and we think, oh, I have a slow metabolism or a fast metabolism or that kind of thing. So it's the energy that all of this uses up is essentially our metabolism. And we measure it in calories. And calories are not these magical fat storing fairies that come out at night time and scupper our results or anything like that. Calorie is just a unit of measurement. It's like an inch or a kilometer. We don't need to be afraid of calories, okay? The definition of a calorie is the amount of heat it takes to increase 1 gram of water by 1 degree at sea level. It's got nothing to do with food, it's a measurement of energy, it's a measurement of heat. The definition of a calorie is just the amount of energy it takes to increase 1 gram of water by 1 degree at sea level, very precisely at sea level. So that's essentially what a calorie is, it's just a measurement. And that's how we measure the energy in our body, essentially. So when we look at our metabolism, okay, it is, we call this total daily energy expenditure. So BMR stands for your base metabolic rate. So if you stayed in bed all day and did nothing, just lay in bed all day long, about 70% of your total daily calories burned or energy demand will be taken up by that, okay? So we burn a huge amount of calories just to keep us alive on a daily basis, okay? Then NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That's essentially the heat we're producing, the energy we're producing when we're not actively exercising. So, for example, me standing up here, I'm burning more calories than you guys because you're sitting down. My NEAT is higher, my non-exercise activity, okay? So just understand if pushing your teeth, if you're driving a car, if you're scrolling on your phone, even sitting watching TV, you're burning calories all the time. TEF stands for the thermic effect of food. So 10% of our daily calories are burned off just by digesting the food. So when we eat, we have to use energy to digest that food, and about 10% of your daily energy needs are just consumed with digestion. And then EAT is exercise. Exercise activity thermogenesis, about 5%, okay? Now, this might make you realize that it's a very small part of the pie, right? And this is someone who owns a gym telling you that exercise doesn't burn that huge amount of calories, okay? It has a lot of other wonderful benefits, which we'll go through. But when it comes to exercise, and it's one of the big things that scuppers people, it's like, I'm doing all this exercise, why the hell aren't I losing weight? It's because you're only burning a very small amount of calories with your exercise. There's a lot of other things that you can do that will make a bigger impact. Come on. So I just skip forward about 5 slides now. Okay, so we're going to go with an example. Mary, she is 5'5", she weighs 12 stone, and she's 47 years of age. There's a calculator that you can use online that calculates your BMR like I showed you. So it's basically the amount of calories that's just needed to keep you alive, to keep all your organs functioning, etc. Without you doing any movement, without you getting out of bed. You stay there for 24 hours in a day. So basically, pop Mary into the calculator and it spits out a BMR, base metabolic rate of 1,470. So in order for her just to keep her body alive and functioning well, she needs to consume 1,400 calories just to keep her alive. It's a considerable amount, again, without her doing any exercise or any movement or anything like that. Now there are multipliers that you can kind of get a sense of, okay, well, how active is the person, and then get their total out, because obviously she's not staying in bed all day. Mary, she has a job and blah, blah, blah. So you multiply that, again, this is just an example, you don't need to pay too much attention to the numbers, but spits out a number of about 2,000 calories. So that's her metabolism, okay? Mary, to do all the functions that she does during the day and to make all her organs function the right way, etc., she burns about 2,000 calories a day. So the way we look at that is that if she eats 2,000 calories, she's going to fuel her daily energy demands, okay? And that ultimately means she's going to maintain her weight. She's burnt off the same amount that she's put in, okay? Make sense? So if she eats less than 2,000, she's going to lose weight, and then if she eats more than 2,000, she's going to gain weight. Now, one thing we've got to realize with regards to things like this and our metabolism is that it's not a set number. It's generally more of a range, okay? And that's where a lot of people can go wrong. It's like, oh, I'm only eating X amount of calories, why am I diluting it? And it's a range, and it's also dynamic. Your metabolism is ever changing. It's not a set, rigid number, okay? It changes, and there's a lot of way it changes that we have no control over whatsoever. So obviously, we think we add exercise, okay, I'm gonna burn more calories. So we can kind of look at it as basically an additive model. So essentially this is 2,000 calories, and she does 100 calories worth of exercise, she burns 2,100 calories. She does another, she adds in 200 calories worth of exercise, she burns 2,200 calories, or she adds in, she burns it. That's the way it appears to work for most kind of lay people. However, when we actually study the metabolism, study what happens, there appears to be a ceiling for each individual, that there's a limit to the amount of energy your body is going to give you, okay? So even if you start to try and burn off with more exercise, your body then starts to reduce its BMR, so the your base metabolic rate. So it does this by slowing down heat production, giving your less hormone production, lots of little small subtle little things. It'll just make you more tired, so you sit more often rather than standing and things like that. So this is one of the big things that people don't realize this, that your metabolism adapts to what you do to it. Okay? So again, just because I've just started exercising 3 times a week, I should therefore be burning off more. Not necessarily, your body can adapt, and people adapt in different ways. So they've studied the metabolism, they've studied different people and individuals, and we see that people adapt in various different ways. Some people are lucky, some people are not. So this is a metabolic ward, and this lady, she's a journalist, so she wrote an article for Vox, and about 24 hours she spent living in this airtight sealed chamber, right? So it basically measures her metabolism. And before going in, she would have sworn she's in slow metabolism. And when she went in, she learned an awful lot about herself and got her kind of readings and spoke to the doctors, etc. And these are kind of, in the grand scheme of the diet industry and diet culture and understanding the metabolism, these are a fairly new thing, okay? They're also pretty expensive as well. So you can imagine you want to get lots of people involved in a nutritional study, or to see what the exercise is doing to the body, or what sort of diet it does to the body. They now have these metabolic wards to be able to assess these. So this is her metabolism essentially printed out from her 24-hour stay. So she burned 2,300 calories in a day. Her metabolism was normal. Okay, so in her idea, her mind, I have a slow metabolism, anything I'm trying to do doesn't really work, so on and so forth, and it comes out as well. Now, it's a really interesting thing, she did 3 30-minute bike sessions while she was in the chamber. And if you notice, the amount of calories she's burning after each individual session is dropping, okay? So it kind of goes to show us that ceiling, that the body's not going to keep producing the same amount of calories every single time. So what I want you to do is think about it not just as a day, think about that as weeks and months and so on and so forth, that you're not burning the exact same amount of calories all the time, every day. It's not a linear number, it's dynamic and ever changing. So understanding this is a big important factor in helping you get results. Because if you understand that you've no idea what your metabolism is doing, then it can open up a lot more opportunities to change and to learn about what works for you, okay? And not just, I often get a lot of people say, but I eat really healthily, I don't know why it's not working. But I only ate X amount last week, why didn't it work? It was like, that's the food side of things, but you don't know what your metabolism did. You don't know how it adapted to what you were trying to do to it. So again, as I said, is one of the big things will kind of, is to help you get away from the kind of questions like, why isn't this working? I'm being so good, or I'm putting in all this effort, why isn't this working? And flip it around and go, okay, this isn't working, what do I change? Okay, so we've got to kind of basically look at it, okay, something, my body has adapted, it's changed something. And then when we look at diet, so again, we're looking at this adaptation from the metabolism. Now what we see with when people go on very low calorie diets and things like that, or they're trying to diet for too long or doing it the wrong way, is they're not putting in enough energy to meet their daily energy demand. And so the body adapts. So it starts to basically reduce certain things that it can get away with. So it'll start to lose muscle, you get poor sleep, low energy, more fatigue. It reduces your, it has to be shown that it reduces your non-exercise activity. So this is all subconscious activity. People fidget less, and they've all studied this in metabolic wards. Put someone on a lower calorie diet, and you know, on paper it appears that they're eating less, but then their metabolism just drops down, and it just adapts to it. So the biggest thing with this as well is the increased cravings and the increased hunger. So the body doesn't want to be here, so it makes you eat more. So we go on a diet, what's the first thing that happens? We get hungry. So, you know, again, your body kind of tries to fight against you. And again, there are ways to counter this, and don't be disheartened that I'm kind of putting in all this bad news. And again, for a lot of people when they go on a diet, and we look at, you know, the consistency of trying to kind of stay on a diet, is these are the things that are kind of scuppering us. And then the other side of the coin is that if we start to eat more at maintenance or above maintenance, you have extra calories that your body can use and, you know, help with balancing your hormones and so on and so forth. Really interesting thing is, again, when they use these metabolic wards and they put people in them and they increase so they measure their metabolism, say right here, let's say this lady was at 2,300, they overfeed her, so start giving her 2,600 a day, her metabolism goes up to match it. That doesn't happen with everyone. We don't know if it's going to happen with you, or if you're the opposite and your metabolism goes down, you know, that kind of thing. But it can happen. That people are overfed, their metabolism speeds up. So underfed, some people's metabolism slows down. Overfed, some people's not. So again, there are just lucky bastards out there, right? But that's ways we can't look at what someone else is doing or what someone else has tried or what we read in a magazine or see on TikTok or blah, 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 or whatever, because we've got to look at what works for us. And that's the whole kind of purpose of this today, is to show you how to figure out what works for you, okay? To give you the best kind of plan going forward. Anybody else have this kind of relationship with the scales? It's very frustrating, and you know, kind of, yeah, again, we're looking up at the fast results and the motivation side of things. Relationship with the scales is, you know, people step on the scales and it goes up by a pound, and yeah, what's the point? All this effort for nothing, or you don't lose weight, or you gain weight, or whatever. Or the other side of the coin is you step on the scales and it's down a pound. Now the thing is when we look at the scales on its own, up or down a pound, we don't know what actually that pound is, okay? It could be some of it fat, but it could also be water weight and muscle weight. There's lots of things that influence your scale weight itself. So being overreactive on the scales and using the scales and a kind of one measurement to determine your kind of mood for the day type of thing is a way to stop your consistency. Okay, because people step on the scales, it's up, blah, blah, blah. But what has it gone up by? We don't know. And what I'm going to help you with today is to be less reactive with the number on the scales. Because the whole key with anything is the more consistent you can be with this, the better results you're going to get. Okay, so if you can be consistent, that let's say if we're going to do something with a challenge and you know, doing with a group of people and we have a deadline and it's like, okay, you know, the motivation is high for 6 weeks. Well, what happens at the end of 6 weeks my goal for you is to make sure that when the 6 week finishes, I can just keep going. That there's not this, oh thank God that's over. It's so hard and that kind of thing. It shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. So when we're looking at weight loss, well, and from now on, when I use the term weight loss, for the most part, I'm going to be talking about fat loss, okay? So fat is the unhealthy weight. Fat is the stuff we have stored, the stuff we can pinch. That's the stuff we want to get rid of on our body, okay? But we can lose water weight and muscle weight. We can lose other kinds of weight. So particularly when we're looking at that basis, we want to target fat loss. So fat is essentially stored energy. 1 pound of fat is the equivalent of 3,500 calories worth of energy. So when we look at fat loss, we're actually looking at energy loss. I'm trying to lose energy in my body, stored energy in my body. And ultimately then it comes back to, okay, we need to put less energy in than we are putting out. Now the only way we can tell if we're losing weight is obviously when we step on the scales. So if we step on the scales and it hasn't changed, doesn't matter what you've done the previous week, no matter how good you thought you'd been, no matter how meticulous you might have been with your food or anything like that, if you didn't lose fat, you didn't lose energy. You didn't give your body a reason to burn the stored energy. Does that make sense? And a lot of people look at it the other way. They think they've been good all week, they put in the effort, and they step on the scales and they go, oh, I don't know what's wrong, why isn't this working? I might as well just give up. So what we've got to do is we've got to step on the scales, and that gives us the indication of whether what we did is working or we need to change something. And ultimately what we do is we can be called as an energy deficit or a calorie deficit. So the way it works is, if we tell me that wasn't a permanent marker. So no, it's not working. The way it looks is, if we look at a pound of fat as 3,500 calories. So in order to lose that 1 pound, we've got to lose 3,500 calories. So the first thing to realise is we kind of look at Mary, and her maintenance level was 2,000 calories. Now in order for her to lose 1 pound of fat, or even to gain 1 pound of fat, there has to be a swing of 3,500 calories. That's not going to happen overnight. So it makes sense. So when you step on the scales and you're up a pound from the day before or something like that, it can't be fat. Okay? Now, well, it could be, depends on what kind of day you had the day before, but it's very unlikely that it's all fat. Okay? So, and again, it's kind of getting a better relationship with the scales is key so that you can remain consistent. So ultimately, how we're working with regards to fat loss. So Mary's maintenance level is 2,000 calories. If she eats 1,500 calories, she's given us this deficit of 500 calories. Your body wants to be here, so it goes, okay, where's that extra, where am I going to get that extra energy from? Right, I'm going to take it from here. So it takes it from the fat to bring us back to be able to maintain all our bodily processes, blah, 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 and so on. So that's ultimately how we're working. We put in less food and your body takes the extra energy that's stored on the body to bump us up to the maintenance level or to the level that your body needs. And then over time, we do that 7 days a week, that's 3,500 calories, we can lose 1 pound of fat. So important to understand this in terms of, you know, when we're talking about looking at results and so on and so forth. So when we're looking at how much we should eat, it's based on your rate of weight loss. So no matter what you think you're eating, if you hop on the scales and it's not down, you ate too much. It's as simple as that. If you hop on the scales and the weight's up, you ate too much. If you hop on the scales and it's down, it looks like you're eating the right amount for your goals. Okay, does that make sense? That's the only way to tell is by the scales, not by an app, not by a diet, not by anything else. It's by the results on the scales. The rate of weight loss that we should be looking for and should be seeing, so when we're talking about the actual results, is between 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week. So Mary is 76 kilos. She was 12 stone, 76 kilos, which means that 1% of that is 760 grams, and 0.5% of that is 380. So if Mary is losing this kind of weight, and that's roughly kind of 1.5 pounds, a little bit higher than that, slightly just under a pound. If she's getting those results, she's on track, okay? Now, Can we lose more weight than this? Yes, we can. But when we lose more weight than this, we're looking at your body's not just losing fat, it's losing water weight, it's losing muscle weight, it's losing other things, okay? So it basically, based on studies and things like that, if we lose between about 0.5% and 1% body weight, we can ensure that most of it comes from fat, okay? So it's the unhealthy weight that we're losing. Yes, there's crash diets. Yes, there's all these different kind of diets that we hear about that people can lose lots of weight very quickly, but it's not all fat. Physically, your body can't. When we look at this, 3,500 calories is 1 pound of fat. Physically, in order to lose all of that from fat, if someone's losing 5 pounds or 10 pounds in a week or whatever like that, it's just impossible to do unless you eat minus calories. Do you know what I mean? Which obviously is not happening. So it's really important to understand that's the kind of goal that you're looking for. And we can look at it on a body fat level, so we have our in-body machine down there that measures our body fat. So we can lose between 1.25% and 0.5% percentage points of body fat. So if someone's 30% body fat, after a week, if they're 29.5, 29.75% body fat, they're on track, okay? So this whole idea of fast results, again, comes from, it's one of these things that we said at the start, these false presumptions that, I can get faster results, and I'm not satisfied with these, I want more. It's funny, when I used to I've given kind of this seminar, or kind of an iteration of these seminars for over the years. I've been doing this for 20 years. I used to use the example that the most effective medical intervention for weight loss was surgery. So basically we have bariatric surgery, we shrink the size of the stomach, I can't eat as much, therefore I put myself in a calorie deficit and I lose weight. That was the most the only real medical intervention that there ever was for weight loss. Up until recently. They now have proven weight loss drugs. So I always used to say this, there's no such thing as a weight loss drug. I can't say that anymore because there are weight loss drugs. But how do these weight loss drugs work? They change our hunger signals and they change our fullness signals in the body. So they help us get into a calorie deficit. When we look at the studies on these weight loss drugs, and the two most popular ones are Zepbound and Ozempic, the studies are done with the drug and exercise and diet. Because the drug's not going to work if you're not in a calorie deficit. The drug just helps you maintain your calorie deficit for longer. So it helps you stay and stick with your diet. Does that make sense? Now, when we look at the drugs, so this is the Zepbound one, it's just different dosages in these three columns. The studies of this was done 17 months, 72 weeks, 50% body weight loss, 34 pounds over the course of the study. 17 months, the average weight loss on this dosage was that. And then 19.5%, 20.9%, that's 44 pounds, that says 48 pounds there. And then the placebo, so people who didn't get the drug, they were given the diet and exercise protocol, they lost 7 pounds, 3% of their body weight. And when we look at that, I'm just going to break it down into numbers. The first group on the low dose lost 15% of their body weight over 72 weeks, 34 pounds. That equates to 0.2% of their body weight, or half a pound a week. The 19.5%, so the moderate dose, 44 pounds, 0.27% of their body weight per week, or slightly over half a pound. The difference between the 20% and 25% is negligible in terms of just another decimal point. There are some very small people who did the study who lost 25% of their body weight and lost 58 pounds, and that was 0.34% of their body weight per week, or 0.8 of a pound, so under a pound a week. On the most effective weight loss drug on the planet. They're not losing 3, 4, 5 pounds a week, okay? We should not expect to be losing that. So if we step on the scales of, I only lost a pound, and you piss yourself off, and what's the point in all this effort, blah, 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 blah. That's what you should be expecting. There is no magical, I can lose 10 pounds and blah, 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 it can happen like this. This is the most successful drug on the planet when it comes to weight loss. And that's all people are. And interestingly, on the placebo, there were people that did lose up to 58 pounds just doing diet and exercise because they were able to control their hunger and their appetite and actually stick with the diet for the 72 weeks. Obviously, the drug makes it a lot easier because it changes the hunger signals in the brain. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Next then, one of the most effective diets in the world, and generally used for people to get morbidly obese people ready for surgery because they need to lose it, be at a certain weight before they can actually operate on it. It's a liquid diet, 600 to 800 calories a day, and it's waiting for bariatric surgery. Over 18 weeks, they lost 2.6 pounds per week on average, which again, morbidly obese people, 300 pounds and above, it's less than 1% of their body weight per week. So these are people with a huge amount of weight to lose, you're still not losing weight at these rapid numbers, okay? So there's a lot of the false stuff that we see out there, and the Biggest Loser was one of the biggest things, but all the I don't know if you ever saw the Biggest Loser uncovered type of things where they manipulated these numbers on the scales to show, you know, just for TV essentially. But it gave us this false sense of perception that I should be able to lose weight very quickly. Or we go to Weight Watchers and we see someone else step up and they lost 5 pounds this week. Did they lose 5 pounds? And I only lost a bloody pound and blah, blah, blah. It's not fat, okay? It's not fat that they're losing. It's physiologically impossible to lose a considerable amount of that when we break it down into the actual calorie numbers. And remember, when we're losing weight, when we're losing fat, we're losing energy. It's about the energy that we're trying to take from our body. And even in a 24-hour period, you can imagine your metabolism, it's only going to be able to take so much of the fat out of its cells and use it for energy. It can't take all of it in one 24-hour period, do you know what I mean? So we've spoken about obviously losing the weight, and one of the things is when we look at hopping on the scales, and if we do it once a week, you're basically hoping for the stars to align, that is a true reflection of your results. You're hopping on the scales for like 5 seconds, and there's like 600,000 seconds in a week or something like that. You're hoping upon hope that that's going to show you true reflection, but your scale weight is made up of a lot of different things. How much water is in the body, your salt intake from the night before, because if you eat salt, you're going to retain a bit of water, or if you drink more water one day, you're probably going to flush out a bit more water. Your carbohydrate intake can increase your weight. Your exercise can increase your weight, and vice versa. So again, if we change slightly different things, we can manipulate, and I could easily give any of you a plan for a week to make your weight fluctuate plus or minus 5 pounds, but it wouldn't be fat. It'd be very minimal fat, because it's based on water. It's based on essentially fluid balance in the body. That's really what the scales kind of shows when we step on it for one measurement. So the most effective time to weigh ourselves is to do it daily, okay? Now, this, when I introduce this to people, they freak out. She's like, I can't look at my weight, blah, blah, blah. When basically the idea behind weighing yourself daily is to ignore the individual day number and get an average over the course of the week. So we do 7 times in a week and get the average of that. And that way, it basically takes out all the noise. It takes away the fluctuations in our weight, and gives you a much more accurate number. So, again, just kind of recap in terms of what your weight will fluctuate by: hydration level, stress level, sleep, food density, carb intake, exercise, calorie intake, fiber intake, your bowel movements. And we kind of know this because, hands up here, who weighs himself in the morning time? Why? Because you're lightest, right? You go to the toilet before you weigh yourself? Yeah. Why? Because you want to get fluid out of your body, you want to be, you know what I mean? So we know this already, we just don't really kind of comprehend. So, and interestingly enough, this morning I did it before and after, and it was 300 grams in a difference, right? So just to kind of get a sense of, it's 300 grams in a difference, but that's not fat. I lost weight this morning within the space of 10 seconds, or whatever it was. So basically what we're looking at here is when we weigh ourselves daily, we're going to basically see the weight fluctuating. So the issue is once a week, we're ignoring the daily fluctuations. And this person, if they weighed on a Saturday, after those 3 measurements, those 2 weeks, I still weigh the same thing. What's the point in dieting? What's the point in putting in the effort? However, their 7-day average for the first week was 24.8. The 7-day average for the second week was 74.4. They've lost 400 grams. They've lost close to a pound. And then another 500 grams the following week. They've lost over 2 pounds in weight by their average weight. However, on the Saturday, if they just went by that, they'd give up. This isn't working. What's the point in restricting? What's the point in, cutting out X, Y, or Z or whatever like that? There's no point. So again, this kind of comes back to some of the things that we were looking at, is to keep the consistency side of things going. We need to make sure we're getting as accurate information as possible from our bodies. And this is one of the most accurate ways to check your weight. Now, there's a couple of other things that you can kind of look at here. From Monday to Sunday here, they can look at, I've only lost 200 grams. What's the point? Well, from the average weight from the previous week, they're down half a kilo. They've gained 400 grams from Friday. Where was that? Yeah, from here. And then what else? Their weight is all over the place. It's up and down, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot, and even if you look at Tuesday, from 75.3 73.5. I've lost nearly 2 kilos. It's completely different based on the individual measurements, and that's why I said we ignore the individual measurements, we get our average. And here's an example from my work. This was back in 2022, so over 12 weeks, and this person religiously used to weigh themselves on a Wednesday, and one of their issues was is every time I weigh myself and I don't get the results, I give up, and I just, well, I'll start again next week, and it's this vicious kind of cycle going through it. And again, it's completely understandable. If you're not seeing the results, why the hell put it? So doing this will help you see the results much more clearly. So when we look at what we're looking at here is that gold line is essentially that 0.5 to 1% body weight target, okay, 0.75%. We kind of average it out. So basically I was looking at if we're close to that line, we're on track. Gave her a good visual to kind of see. The red dots are each individual scale measurement and the green is the average. So every red arrow there is every time she stepped on the scales and her weight went up. Went up quite a lot. 37% of the time she stepped on the scales, more than 1 in 3 times, her weight showed an increase. So you can imagine that you're stepping once a week onto the scales, 1 in 3 chance that it's going to be up. So again, and if it's up, you don't go, yay, it's up. We get disheartened, we get frustrated, why isn't this working, and so on and so forth. So doing the daily weight measurement gets rid of all that. We ignore the individual weight. That's the key for it. So a couple of rules that you do at the same time, same conditions, toilet closets, etc. Record the number, but completely ignore it. It does take a while. We work with people on this. It does take a while for that mindset to shift. You're seeing the actual weight, it's not moving, and blah, blah, blah. But what happens over time is that you get some people, they step on the scales one day, it's gone up. The next day they step on the scales and it's 2 pounds down. And again, just how is that happening? We don't know. Your metabolism is doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things in the background that we have largely very little control over, and certainly very little awareness of. So we add up all our daily numbers, divided by the number of measurements. 7 is best, obviously, but 5 will work. And what I would recommend, if you were doing less than 7, or if you missed it or whatever, the weekend should be included, because most people eat more on the weekends than they would during the week. It's not a given, okay? You know what I mean? This is can be different. But if you were doing 5 days a week, pick a Saturday or a Sunday morning that you do your measurement, because it will give you a much more spread out kind of point of view, rather than just Monday to Friday, my good days, I'm going to measure myself. Oh, I had a bad night last night, oh, I'm not going to measure myself in the morning. You know, it's kind of, you're ignoring that kind of thing, but that's important to take all those into account. Other ways we can track then our results. So inches, so doing our waist, hips, thighs, etc. Clothes. So a pair of jeans that don't fit, or pretty tight, with belt notches, things like that, and then photos as well. So one of the things is, depending on how much weight we want to lose, the scales may not give us a huge insight. If somebody wants to lose, 4 or 5 pounds or something like that, you might not see that as quickly on the scales, where you'd see it a bit more in the inches side of things. So you might want to use inches to help track. And again, the key is, if you get all this information on tracking, you can much better assess whether it's working or not, instead of the typical emotional response going, screw this, it's not working, or it's too hard, and so on and so forth. Now, just to kind of give you an example of, we've done a jeans challenge here. So basically, the 4 pictures are people with a set pair of jeans didn't fit, and then 6 weeks later, the jeans close, and we can zip them up and we can wear them. So that was just completely not even using the scales. And then before and after photos of people with, again, yes, you can see a number on the scales, but visually, it's very motivating to see, wow, that's how far. That's what a stone difference looks like for me. And it's very motivating to stay away from our previous point as well, if we have those photos for ourselves personally. So, what to eat? Would you like chocolate?
Yeah.
I can't even open it. Now, if I eat this chocolate, is it going to make me gain weight? Why not? Very hard to talk when you chocolate something.
Within your calorie amount.
Such a bad example to use chocolate, but anyway. So,
Did you enjoy it?
Hmm?
Did you even enjoy it?
eat and enjoy it. So, basically looking at the calories, for half of our, which is 4 squares, 140 calories. I had 1 square. 30-ish calories. So I just eaten 30-ish calories, right? Did it make me gain weight? Did it make me store fat? Yes, it did. Okay? It's not going to make me gain weight, it's going to make me store fat. Here's why. The first things first is, in terms of weight loss, it's only 30 odd calories, right? So it's a very small amount of my total daily intake, right? I can eat about 3,000 calories a day to maintain. I'm literally eating, kind of 30 calories. It's dropping the ocean with that. So first thing is when we eat something like this, we have not ruined our efforts, okay? We're allowed to eat stuff like this. It's okay to eat stuff like this. It's the bigger picture in terms of if I had, now here's the thing is you don't know whether it's going, you don't know if I pounded down 2,970 calories prior to this today. I had a big breakfast. But generally something as small as that is not going to make that effect. However, every time we eat, we're putting nutrients and energy into our body. Your body needs to extract those and send them to places in the body for use. And it does that by increasing some hormones that store nutrients and energy in our body. So every single time we eat, we store fat. It's just a given, okay? We all heard about insulin. Insulin is a storage hormone. When we eat, insulin spikes up and it sends everything to where it needs to go. Even if I ate a banana or a bunch of celery, bananas actually have fat in them, but celery very, very little. I still have fat floating around my blood. So I still increase my insulin every time I eat because I need to send that somewhere. And my body will take the fat, it's in my bloodstream flowing around, and put it back into my fat cells. Because it goes, oh, the banana has some sugar, that's really readily accessible energy, so we'll swap it out. We won't burn the fat, we'll put that back in the cells and we'll eat the sugar that you just consumed. So hard to talk with the chap. Is that making sense? We don't have to understand a huge amount about sciences, but every single time we eat, we store fat, but no food is inherently fattening in the grand scheme of things, okay? So it comes down to how much that we're eating. Better make sure I don't do that with chocolate again. Crisps or something might be better. Okay, so this is where it comes down to food freedom versus restriction. This comes down to consistency and sticking with a plan, okay? If you're restricting all the time and it feels like pulling your teeth out to try and find a diet, follow a diet, you're not going to stick with it for any period of time, okay? You've got to be able to make good food choices and be able to say, yeah, well, I can have a bit of that, because it's not the end of the world. Or that when you do have it, you understand that it's not the end of the world. So to understand that, most people, when we look at it, is they think it's either good or bad, okay? So they're following a diet, I'm trying to be really good, and then they eat something they think they shouldn't have eaten. Screw that, I've ruined my diet. I had people come up to me, John, I broke your diet. I was like, oh, you didn't, did you? It was just like, so it's not black and white, okay? So the way I look at it is it's a spectrum, okay? So along your spectrum, you have choices that are going to be healthier choices and choices that are going to be unhealthier choices. But you're somewhere, you're starting off in terms of your lifestyle, your health, etc. You're somewhere along this spectrum. So you make choices as you go on, choose foods you eat and so on and so forth. And some of them might be on the healthier side, and some of them might kind of turn the dial towards the unhealthier side. But none of them are inherently brilliant for us, or none of them are inherently bad for us, because it's all, again, bigger picture side of things. So, like people eat, chocolate and they feel guilty and they beat themselves up, and I shouldn't have done that, I broke the diet, I've been really bad, and blah, blah, blah. But then they eat some broccoli and they don't go, I'm the healthiest person in the world, it's the most, I've just like basically protected myself from getting any sort of disease in the world, blah, blah, blah. So, we focus way too much on the bad foods. Because again, in diet culture, there are diet foods, and even the kind of terminology that we hear is like, people talk about full fat Coke. Coke doesn't have any fat in it, but like, it's like, oh, we have diet Coke and full fat Coke. So it's, again, it's kind of, when we look at food, we've got to kind of understand it on a much more, this spectrum kind of side of things, that we're turning up the diet or kind of making healthier choices, making unhealthier choices. Now, and then ultimately is finding out what works for you. So when we look at individual variants about what is healthy, this was a study done, and they used 800 people, and they, over the course of a week, they gave them different foods and different meals. They ended up studying like over 46,000 meals or foods with people, and just the different responses that people have for foods. So we hear a lot about, in terms of diabetes and sugar and things like that. So this is just a really interesting comparison that participant 445 is at the top, we'll call him Harry. Participant 644, we'll call him Joe, okay? So Harry, when Harry eats a banana, he gets a spike in his blood sugar and then a crash coming down. When Harry eats a cookie, nothing happens to his blood sugar, right? So what's healthier for Harry, the banana or the cookie? Joe, when he eats the cookie, he gets a spike in his blood sugar, which is what most people would kind of presume. And then when he eats the banana, nothing again. So this is what most people think is like, oh, this is just given for everybody, but it's not. There is individual variance. So again, there is no such thing as a bad food or whatever like this, because there's individual variance. Just again, it's genetics. And unless we go and get ourselves fully tested, and I firmly believe it will happen, that there will be very genetic testing done on people, and a little bit has been done before, but to really kind of identify what diet is best for individual people. It's going to happen, and it's going to make life a lot easier for us. Here's another one as well, just in terms of carbohydrates. So essentially, is they feed them 15 grams, 30 grams, 45 grams, 60 grams of carbohydrates in a meal and sees what happens. So the conventional wisdom would suggest that the more carbohydrate we have, the higher the blood sugar response that we have in the body. But for participant 49, which is Mary, she's reacting the standard way, which is what we would have thought. But for Sheila, no matter how many carbs you give her, the blood sugars don't change. So if Sheila comes to me and says, I want to lose weight, and I put her on a low carb diet, it's not going to change it. Whereas it might impact Mary a hell of a lot more. So that's where the individual variance comes on. There is no kind of one food that we can say, or one diet that we can say, this is going to work for everybody. You've got to figure out what works for you. And don't worry, I'm getting to that. Okay, so just again coming on to what to eat. So it's a professor in America, I think he's a professor of physics, and he followed his own diet. He kind of made it up, and he wants to just show the difference with that it's all about basically an energy deficit to his students. So he did 10 weeks, 1,800 calories a day. 75% of his diet was made up of Twinkies, Oreos, Little Debbie's. They're like little cakes or whatever like that. So a lot of junk food. He ate protein shake every day and some veg. Is that a healthy diet? Yeah. Lost 27 pounds in 10 weeks. Why? He's in a calorie deficit. Now, is it healthy? Got his blood work done before and after. Bad cholesterol went down, his good cholesterol went up, his triglycerides went down. He's healthier after 10 weeks of following that diet than he was beforehand. Was that a healthy diet? Yeah, it was. Why? Because he lost weight. Weight, fat is not an inanimate object on our body. It sends signals and communicates to other cells in the body. So it causes us to, it can increase inflammation in the body. The more fat we have in our body, the more fat is in our blood, etc., and so on. So he lost fat from his body, he lost fat from his blood. His overall, cardiac risk factor in terms of his triglycerides and his cholesterol improved immensely because he lost weight. So when we lose weight, it's one of the most healthiest things we can do. Does that make sense? Okay? It's not how we lose the weight, it's the weight loss. And obviously provided that we can maintain the weight loss. There's no point in him losing 27 pounds in the next 10 weeks he's back up, that kind of thing. So he did that, just as I said, as a pure example that it doesn't matter what you eat, it's the calorie deficit that's covered. Now here's the thing, is nobody's going to go off and say, thanks John, I've got my diet for the next 6 weeks, the Twinkies and Oreos and blah blah blah. But it just, again, a little bit of chocolate is not going to ruin your efforts. And in fact, it can help people stick with the diet a lot more when you have that freedom of food choice. Here's another one, a guy did a video blog, he called it Abs and Ice Cream. 100 days, he ate 2,500 calories a day, 2,000 calories was ice cream, 500 calories was protein powder or beer. If he wanted a beer and he drank 150 calories worth of beer, he took it out of his protein allowance. So he ate 2,000 calories of ice cream every single day. Healthy diet? He lost 32 pounds. He did his blood work. His triglycerides went down. His HDL went up. His LDL went down. His cholesterol went down. His cardiac risk factors, overall risk for getting heart disease, went down. Only thing that was negative was his vitamin D levels went down. Eating dairy, which is supposed to be good for our vitamin D levels. That's the only thing, which is an interesting kind of observation that he had. Everything improved. Why? Because he lost fat from his body. If we can focus on losing fat, that's the most important thing. It's the healthiest thing we can do, okay? Does that make sense? It's the fat loss that's, you know, the thing. It's not how we lose or what we're eating while we're doing it. And again, as I've shown you, there's such an individual variance that you eating some chocolate, or it's not going to have that big an impact on you at all. So when we look at, okay, how we lose weight, let's do a recap. It's based on your energy that you're putting in versus the energy that what you're putting out. And again, when I talk about weight, we're talking about fat. Understanding that the energy out is dynamic, it's changing, it adapts. So the calories that we can put in is the best thing we can control, okay? We don't know what our metabolism is actually doing, but we can gain control of the calories that we're putting in with food and drink. Calories out is based on your base metabolic rate, your non-exercise activity, your exercise, and the actual energy you use when you're burning food, when you're eating food. So when we're looking at this, is if it's based on this, a lot of people when they come to here, they ask for a meal plan, and meal plans are the most ridiculous thing in the world because I don't know what you like to eat. I don't know if you're going to be hungry 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, so I can't tell you what to eat. And if you're not hungry, why would you eat? You know what I mean? So it has to be more, you need to be more empowered yourself, okay? Kind of more self-regulated in order to make the choices. But what I want to do is give you that you have a lot more choice in terms of what you can and can't eat. When we come, I have to cook separate meals for people and things like that. Hopefully it's kind of opening up your mind that actually you can eat a lot more convenience foods and that kind of thing, that there's a lot more choice out there for you. So as I said, I don't know what your favorite foods are. So when we're looking at 1 pound of fat, in order to lose that, we need to lose 3,500 calories out of our diet, out of our week. So Mary, at 2,000 calories, she's at maintenance, plus or minus 3,500 calories will be the pound. So if she eats an extra 3,500 calories one day, so she eats 5,500 calories in one day, she's going to gain a pound. Again, coming back to this kind of side of things, like gain a pound scales, very hard to eat 5,500 calories in a day. Not impossible. I've done it before. But it's very, very difficult, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Well, a lot of times when I work with people that, oh, I ate over my calories, or I ate too much, or blah, 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 but you didn't eat that much. Do you know what I mean? So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You've got to keep going, keep the consistency going. Now, this might make it appear that, okay, it's very hard to actually gain weight, right? And no, it's not the case. But we go plus or minus 100 calories a day over the course of the year. That's a 10-pound swing, right? 100 calories. What did I eat there? 30, so 3 of these, right? 3 of these a day, plus or minus, is a 10-pound, stone and a half close to, in a year. And then if we break that down even smaller, 1.5 of these could be a 5-pound gain in a year. And we know about weight creep and stuff like that. As we get older, we're kind of, honestly, a little bit of weight. And again, it can be as simple as 1.5 of these. So it's tiny if we don't have an awareness of it. So we go back to Mary. What happens if she eats 1,500 calories? She's in deficit, so she's going to? No, Mary didn't come to the seminar. She's not doing the challenge. So if we look at it in the grand scheme of things, 7 days a week, 2,000 calories a day, it's 14,000 calories a week to maintain. She eats 1,500 calories on Monday to Thursday and being really good, but she's been overly restrictive. She's depriving herself of all the foods she likes to eat. Somebody comes into the office then on Friday and has a box of chocolates. Oh, I shouldn't, I don't want to, but she's been missing chocolate all week long. So she has some and says, oh, I've ruined it, I'll have a couple more, right, fine, gets home and feels a bit guilty and has something different for dinner, so she ends up eating 2,000 calories. Goes out on Saturday, has a dessert when she wasn't planning to, has some cocktails and stuff like that, wakes up hungover on Sunday and is eating a lot of food. She's now eating 1,500 calories a week, which is an extra 1,000 calories on top of her maintenance. Over the course of a year, that's 52,000 extra calories per year. She has gained over stone. While dieting 4 out of every 7 days, she's gained a stone. This is what most people do, is they try to be too good and then blow it out. And it's this vicious cycle over and over and over and over again. So dieting, imagine like people have described it, I feel like I'm on an endless diet, and these kind of things. this is what's happening, is that they're trying to restrict too much. They're not eating foods that they like. It's not a consistent plan, and therefore it's on and off, on again, off again, on again, off again, and so on. So, what if she eats 3,000 calories in one day?
No matter, depending what she does.
It depends. It's the biggest thing. It depends, right? So, Mary did come to the seminar. She eats 3,000 calories one day. 3 days a week she eats 1,000 calories. Another day she eats 2,000, and then she has 2 days of 2,500 calories. She's eating 13,000 calories a week. That's a 15-pound loss in a year. Only dieting 3 out of every 7 days. Okay? So it becomes about structure and planning. So once we have an awareness of this, we can then structure our weeks into a much more conducive plan, that it's not this all or nothing type of thing, okay? That we're planning these days and structuring our days around, and even structuring, you know, days, weeks, meals, etc. I call it the bird's eye view. So we're zooming out. We're looking at the much bigger picture rather than the one food, rather than the one piece of chocolate or the one chocolate bar or whatever like that. If we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, and we can zoom out even more than a week. So Mary eats 16,000 calories one week. That's a 2,000 calorie surplus on that week. But over the course of 6 weeks, if she eats those numbers, she has a 3.5 pound loss. And she's only dieted for 4 out of those 6 weeks. She's only been in a calorie deficit for 4 out of those 6 weeks. On the grand theme of things when we're zooming out. So when we're zooming out. So this again is coming back to, if we understand this, it means that we don't overreact to something that we've eaten, or we don't overreact to a number on the scales. Ruining your efforts. So let's say with Mary, if she ate 1,500 calories 6 days a week, she's now eating 9,000 calories over the course of the week. She would have to eat 5,000 to bring her up to the 1,400 to hit her at maintenance, okay? So she's been really good all week, she's hitting her numbers, and she has one bad day. She has to eat 5,000 calories in that day just to get to maintenance. In order to gain a pound of fat that day, she has to eat 8,500 calories in that day. It's 4 tubs of Ben & Jerry's. Again, it's not impossible. 4 tubs of Ben & Jerry's. It's not, no, it's 8 tubs of Ben & Jerry's. It's not impossible, but it's pretty damn difficult. So as I said, is don't react by the food that you've eaten. Don't ruin your efforts because you think I shouldn't have eaten that food and I feel guilty about it and so on. It's so hard to stick to a diet, all this kind of sort of stuff. That we can, what rules our efforts is our thought about what we've done, not actually what we've done. Does that make sense? Because then it leads to a vicious cycle where we stop making the better food choices, the ones that were working for us. And we give up and start again next week and so on. So, understanding a couple of key factors then is your metabolism is dynamic, it's ever changing. We look at the bird's eye view rather than the single meal, the single day, and so on. And then to understand that, you know, like the last slide I showed you, that we're in a deficit. We have to bring a certain amount of calories up to hit the maintenance, and then to go over that, we have to bring up. So when I've given people plans before, and they go, oh John, I went over my food, I shouldn't have eaten, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, how much? And I look at it, it's 20 calories over. Right? It's not, you're still in the deficit, you're just not in as big, even if you go 100 calories, 200 calories, you're still in a calorie deficit. You're just not in as big a deficit as you might have liked to have been, or you plan to be, but you haven't ruined your efforts. And again, it all comes back to the consistency of sticking with it and keeping it going. Now, when we look at exercise, and again, I showed at the start that exercise accounts for a very small amount. So when we look at exercise intensity, so here we're looking at moderate intensity, roughly burning 5 calories per minute. At 60 minutes of exercise, we'll burn 300 calories. If we do that 3 times a week, we burn 900 calories. If we use 3,500 calories as 1 pound of fat, quarter of a pound of fat doing 3 exercise sessions a week. It's nothing to shout home about, especially if we're expecting to see 3, 4, 5 pound losses, you know, quick results, fast results. This exercise is essentially minuscule, it's not going to do anything. Yes, you can do it 6 days a week and you lose half a pound, but again, it's very, you know, when most people are looking at it, half a pound, they kind of like dismiss, like, what's the point of doing it? Now, if we ramp up our exercise intensity and try to do it, you know, push ourselves harder essentially, what we see is that the kind of max over a course of sustained kind of 60 minutes of a workout, the maximum amount of calories that we can burn is about 10 calories per minute, okay? So, now, you gotta imagine this, if you're doing this is at your absolute limit. 600 calories in the hour. So yes, you could lose half a pound doing 3 sessions a week, and you could lose a pound from exercise doing 6 times a week. But this is the most intense, vigorous 60 minutes of exercise you could possibly imagine. You are crawling out of the gym. You are getting sick in the toilet. It's not recommended, okay? It's not recommended, okay? Athletes don't train this hard, okay? But we have a common thing. So, well, surely if I just push myself harder, I'm going to burn more calories and I'll lose more fat. Doesn't necessarily work that way. This type of stuff is very hard to sustain. You're basically attacking your body, and your body goes, nah, I don't like it. And we go back to that ceiling, that constrained model. Your body adapts, and you start getting more fatigued, and it's harder to recover from the exercise. Then you go, oh, I can't be arsed going to the gym. It's just too hot. The thought of having to do that again, blah blah blah. So that's not the solution. Okay, it's not harder. So it's working smarter. It also can show us that fat burning workouts, they don't exist. Okay. So with regards to exercise, we're not trying to exercise to burn fat. Okay, just you're wasting your time, which is good in terms of you don't need to smash yourself in order to get results. So when we look at, actually everyone stand up for a sec. We're looking a little bit too comfortable there. Okay, let's do a couple of hops. Congratulations, you've all just boosted your metabolism. Sit back down. So, anybody hear about like things in the morning to do to boost your metabolism? You know what I mean? It's like have a cup of water with lemon, boost your metabolism, blah, blah, blah. Getting out of bed and waking up boosts your metabolism, okay? You just start moving more. So, when we're looking at this non-exercise activity, okay? This is just an example of kind of how you can. So, if we're resting, so lying down, 77 calories per minute per hour. Sitting motionless, like most of us here, 80. Doing a bit of fidget, you might be doing that. You're wrapping your calories up. Standing motionless, standing while fidgeting. So most of you guys are somewhere between about 80 and 118, and I'm up here at 148. Right? So I'm just burning more calories just by the nature of me standing up and kind of moving around a little bit. And then when we walk, the amount of calories we're doing. Now, one of the things with all of this is, again, it's not. Let's say I'm on 88 here, standing motionless. It's not 88 plus 77. Okay, really understand that. So when we do an hours of exercise, if we had laid down, we would have just burned 77 calories anyway. If you burn 200 calories in that hour of exercise, it's only 133 calories more. That makes sense. Again, just to come back to show you that you're not, there's certain claims about kettlebell workouts for 1,200 calories an hour. The study was done on a minute of kettlebell swings. You just multiply it by 60. It's like you can't do it for that length of time at that intensity and that kind of thing. So one of the things, just to give you an example of this, is go back to Mary. She gets a promotion, so she was, let's say, working in retail, she's been on the shop floor, and now she's working at a desk more. So she goes from burning 148 calories an hour while standing to 80 calories an hour while sitting. So she's difference of 68 calories per hour for 4 hours every day. That's 272 fewer calories per day, 1,360 per week, 65,000 less calories burned in 1 year. She's gained 18 pounds. It's so subtle, we don't know what's happening, okay? And then when we go back to the neat kind of stuff, the non-exercise stuff, that if we try and restrict too much, your body can adapt and just stop you from fidgeting, stop you from producing heat, stop all these small little processes in the body, just slow them down a little bit. It's basically giving you less energy to do all these things. You don't notice it, but your body metabolism, that's where we talk about, oh, I have a slow metabolism, or metabolism is slowing down. It's no, I'm just moving less. Does that make sense? You can do the opposite, you can move more and then kind of speed it up as well. So another thing as well is that a lot of people, they get results 1 week and then the next week they don't get the same results, or they don't get any results. And they're like, but I didn't change anything. And it's like, you don't know. You can't be that cocky and say, I didn't change anything when I've just kind of go through what your metabolism can be doing underneath the surface. And there's so many things that can be going on. So generally it's not the diet, it's your ability to stick to it that matters more. So again, I can kind of create the best diet in the world on paper and give it to someone, but they can't follow it, they can't stick to it. It's a useless diet for them, okay? So it's your ability to stick to the diet. And that's why I said it's not about, we come back to the very start, you ask 100 people how do you lose weight, they all know how to do it, but they don't know how to stick to it. Okay, their ability to stick to what they're trying to do. So what I've hopefully shown you is trying to stick to something that's too hard. If it's too hard to stick to, it's too hard to stick to, change it. Find something that's easier to stick to. You might not lose as much weight in the first week as you might have done doing something previous, but you're going to be able to keep going, and the consistency of it, then you end up losing a hell of a lot more weight in the long term. So it's your ability. So we need to work on your ability to stick to something, okay? So there's a couple of things. The first and foremost is making sure it's the right plan in terms of it's not overly restrictive and so on and so forth. But there's three main factors: stress, hunger, and energy. So if you can imagine, your stress levels are out the window, you're starving all the time, and your energy is piss poor, and I give you a diet to follow. Not happening, right? What we did do, the other side of the coin then, is that if you basically control over your stress levels, you're feeling calm, fine, you're rarely hungry, energy levels are raised up through the roof, you're feeling great, it's a hell of a lot easier to make better food choices and to follow a plan. And again, obviously then is if you make the plan easier itself to stick to, make your ability to stick to that better, you're going to make much more consistent results going forward. So if we look at stress, I'm going to briefly go over this, but kind of not delve too much into it. We've got our daily stresses. Exercise is a stress to our body as well. And again, like I showed you, if we're trying to kind of push ourselves too hard, we can actually counteract what we're actually trying to achieve. And so when we look at their kind of stresses in our body, there are countermeasures that we can use, that we can take ourselves out of stress mode. Now, stress mode is essentially fight or flight. Okay, we've kind of heard fight or flight before. There's an opposite system in the body to stress, and it's called rest and digest. Okay, so your body is kind of like yin and yang. Both are important, both are needed. Unfortunately, most of our lifestyles are daily. We're go, 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 go all the time. We're in this high stress mode all the time, and we're very little time to go into rest and digest mode. But there are ways we can do to put ourselves into that, and even certain forms of exercise can actually bring us into that or stimulate that side of things. Now, the thing with fight or flight is this survival mechanism. So what it does is it ramps up your adrenaline in your body, it increases your immediate calorie need, your body floods your blood full of sugar, carbohydrate essentially, so you can deal with the stress. Now this is an evolutionary thing, and our stress was a lion's going to chase me, I need to run away and climb up a tree and hide or something like that, or I need to fight. Most of our stresses are generally mental, but it's still the same physical response. What happens after we get this flood of adrenaline, we get a dump after it, and then we get our cravings and our hunger and so on and so forth. So if we can do things, if we understand this is happening, we can do things that are going to bring us into this rest and digest mode, then we can have the less physiological effects of stress on our body, and it can help people with cravings and hunger and energy and so on. So with regards to hunger, food choices, first and foremost, really important, that you're not trying to eat lettuce. You know what I mean? Like when you're following a plan, you're trying to be in a calorie deficit. Yes, you can follow the strictest plan in the world and try and eat 1,000 calories a day. If you're hungry all the time, it's going to be very, very difficult to sustain that. So with regards to food choices, we can choose foods that fill you up more. Now this again can be very individual, certain foods. There are a couple of kind of things like protein, more fiber foods, even foods you like, do you know what I mean, that satisfy you. It's not even a hunger thing, it's like that was a satisfying meal. Whereas if you eat a meal, you're trying to diet, and you eat a meal and you're like, it's like you just ate air or something like that. There's no time. You're going to want to eat after that. So you know, eating that meal is pretty much pointless if you're going to end up eating more calories afterwards. So having a meal that has maybe even a little more calories in it to offset or to counter the fact that you're not going to be hungry can be a much better choice. But having said that, is like with regards to food choices, I've spoken to people, and some people they eat porridge, they're hungry an hour later. Some people they eat porridge and they can go for 5 hours. It's just an individual thing. So know what foods fill you up. Craving side of things, again, big sabotage. We have cravings up on the board. One of the biggest things with cravings is that we're trying to completely overly restrict food, i.e. can't eat any chocolate, can't eat chocolate, can't eat chocolate. We're going to want more chocolate essentially. So we kind of allow ourselves a little bit of what we fancy can help. And the Goldilocks is essentially about getting it just right, okay? That we don't want to, you know, we don't want to be starving all the time. But I've also spoken to people like, John, what can I do to speed up my results? I was like, well, what? I didn't really lose any weight last week. Like, what's your hunger levels? I'm not hungry at all. Right. What do you think you can do? I don't know. You're not hungry at all. Eat less. Yeah, so it's again, so find that kind of right happy medium. A little bit of hunger if you're trying to lose some weight is a normal thing. Do you know what I mean? But it's not something that's going to overly over hunger, where you're going to end up, you know, you're kind of ravenous and stuff like that and can't control food choices. So again, you've got to find kind of the balance that's right for you. And then your energy as well. So looking at your sleep, water intake, and your actual fitness levels. I'll talk about that now, kind of more in terms of how to boost our energy through fitness levels, and our digestion as well. So these things can play havoc on our energy levels. And again, like I said there, if your energy is low all the time and you're getting home from work and you have to cook a meal, oh God, you know, your energy's just not there. It's very hard to make those right decisions, okay? So again, if we can work on these, work on your balance, it's not something you can just flick a switch and go, oh, I've gone from drinking a pint of water a day to 2 litres of water a day and my energy is amazing, blah, blah, blah. It takes time for this, but these are the things, the foundations. If you can get these better for yourself. And for some people, energy is fine. It's the stress or it's the hunger that's an issue, and vice versa for different people. So it's about identifying where your kind of obstacles are, where you're, what I call them, the handbrakes on. You're trying to drive with the handbrake on. You're putting in all this effort. If you can release your handbrake, it's much easier to get that consistency going. So, in terms of the plan, view it as an experiment. So we eat a certain way, and we're asking the question, did it work, yes or no? I can't give any of you, like I said, a meal plan or whatever, and say, eat this and you're going to lose weight or whatever like that. Because number one, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stick to it. Number two, I don't know if it's the right amount of food. I don't know if it's just foods that you like eating, and so on and so forth. So the question is we need to experiment. The only way we can know and get that information is to measure yourself. So we do our daily weight, get our average weekly weight. We can do inches, we can use the in-body analyzer down there to see what's changing. We track what we're eating as well. So by doing those two things, we get a lot of information and we can say, is this working, yes or no? So if the results are going in the right direction, then your food was perfect for you, keep eating. I don't care what was on your sheet. Okay, so a lot of people will ask me, John, will you look at my food and tell me what I should change? And I say, let me have a look at your measurements. Keep doing what you're doing, but you didn't look at my food. I don't need to, I need to look at your measurements. Your measurements are what dictate your food, not the other way around. I said, people will even get results and they're like, John, what should I change in my food? I said, nothing, it's working, keep going. So is it working, yes or no? If it's not working, we need to figure out, okay, how do we reduce our intake? Where are our higher calorie foods coming from, and how do we reduce them? We'll go through that in a moment. In terms of your exercise plan, we need to look after your muscles. So I've spoken a lot about the fat side of things, and 3,500 calories, fat is stored energy, so is muscle. So when we lose weight, and that's why I kind of spoke about there's a big difference between weight loss and fat loss, that when we lose weight, you can lose muscle weight, okay? There's only a certain amount of fat that you can actually lose in a 24-hour period, in a weekly period, and so on. So if you're trying to be in too much of a deficit, or if you're, again, it's just genetics involved in this as well, that some people are just more susceptible to losing more muscle, it's harder for them to maintain their muscle and so on. If we can look after our muscle, it means that if I go into a 3,500 calorie deficit, now a pound of muscle is about 2,700 calories. So if I'm in a 3,500 calorie deficit over the course of the week, but I lose 2,700 of that from muscle, then I've only lost 800 calories of fat. Does that make sense? So if I'm losing a lot of muscle while I'm losing weight, I'm just hindering my ability to lose fat. So there's a couple of things that we can do to keep your muscle essentially. So the first thing is to do some form of resistance training. You need to give your body, say, but I'm using my muscles a couple of times a week. We need to do, I'm in a consistent routine of this, we need these muscles. So that's where exercise becomes beneficial. Basically, it sends a signal to your body, keep the muscle, which means then if I put myself in a 3,500 calorie deficit, I don't lose the 2,500, I lose 3,500 from fat. So that's where we kind of read and hear stories about muscle, weight training is very good at burning fat, or weight training is really good for weight. What it does is that it just basically teaches your body to hold on to the muscle, which means you then burn more fat. Does that make sense? It doesn't increase your rate of weight loss or blah, 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 or anything like that. It just makes sure that you're not losing the wrong stuff. So the majority of your calories are coming from your pounds of fat. And then basically looking at in regards to exercise is we want to improve our fitness, improve our health, and so on and so forth. So largely that comes down to our aerobic capacity, which is essentially your ability to pump your blood around your body. Okay, so your blood vessels, your heart. One of the benefits of improving your fitness levels is you improve the mitochondria. So basically it's your energy centers of your cells. Okay, so it's been shown with exercise that we can bump up those energy centers of our cells, and if every cell has more energy, we have more energy, okay? If they're severely depleted and impacted, then we don't have the same amount of energy. And the other thing that's a massive benefit is that it reduces inflammation and stress on our body. So remember when I talk about stress, we don't know the difference. The physical reaction is the same, whether it's a mental stress or a physical stress, that I have to run away from a lion, or I pissed off with someone in traffic. It's the same physical response in the body. So if we can reduce our inflammation and stress, we're going to feel better. And if we're feeling better, we're going to make better decisions. We're going to be more consistent on it. So when we look at strength training, minimum twice a week. So if we do 2 sessions a week of big movements like squats, deadlifts, bench, it doesn't matter what weight you're lifting in comparative to other people. It's just that you progress at your level and make sure you're progressing, okay? The key is progressive strength training, that you're just doing a little bit more. So we improve each session, do 1 more repetition, add an extra little bit of weight on it, add an extra set. Do something more than you did last week. It will give your body the best signal to keep your muscle, which means you'll burn more fat. Does that make sense? You'll lose more fat, more calories from fat. So that's the key. And again, it only needs to be 2 sessions a week. You don't have to, be a bodybuilder and, Arnold Schwarzenegger training 6 times a week and 2 times a day and blah, blah, blah. That's not what we're talking about. It's literally enough of a signal to say, keep the muscle, keep the muscle. Aerobic conditioning, so it was kind of largely called Zone 2 training, if you kind of see it in the media now. But essentially, this is more moderate paced exercise, okay? So it's not this all out hard push, 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 push. This is going to try and ensure that we still burn, let's say, kind of the calories from our exercise, but without over fatiguing our body, so that has a detrimental effect on our metabolism, okay? So essentially what we need is the way you're doing it is you're exercising at a decent level, but you can still hold a conversation, okay? So you're not, that's too hard, okay? But also it's not so low, like a walk isn't high enough, okay, for most people, unless you're coming from a complete, couch potato type of thing. So in the heart rate system that we use, it's the blue zone, the top of the blue zone, okay? So if we can kind of maintain, do a lot of training there, we can improve our aerobic capacity, our blood vessels. It helps us utilize fat better in our body as well. So you're not talking about it increases fat burning, but it makes your body more efficient at getting fat from A to B, okay? Which should help in the grand scheme of things. It also then will boost the mitochondria in the cells. We get more energy, we feel better, all that kind of sort of thing. So the way to get benefits from it would be somewhere between 100 and 180 minutes per week. Now I know that sounds like a lot, and essentially that's just 1 40 to 60 minute session and then 2 or 3 20-minute sessions, and you can do that before or after one of the strength training sessions. So 3 to 4 sessions a week, and you can get enough of that exercise in. But again, the whole point in it is to keep your metabolism working as well as it can without pushing you over the limit, where you're doing too much and your body starts adapting and fighting against you. Now, so with regards to the challenge, the ultimate goal is to help you find a sustainable calorie deficit, okay? To help you get sustainable weight loss. So there's a couple of things is that when we look at setting goals, people say, okay, I want to lose weight, okay? That's an outcome. That's an outcome of doing certain things in a certain way. You can't get that outcome without doing certain things in a certain way. Whereas most people will just say, oh, I want to lose 2 stone, I want to lose 3 stone, or whatever it is. But unless you actually say, well, in order to do that, here's what I need to actually track and be accountable to. There are certain things that we do on a daily basis. So in regards to the challenge, a daily behavior is weigh yourself daily. Am I doing it, yes or no? Tick, yes I am. I'm taking steps towards, by doing all this, I'm getting all the information so that I can change and tweak and adjust and start losing the weight and get to that 3 stone weight loss. But I can't get to that 3 stone weight loss if I'm ignoring my daily behaviors. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's the process, and then there's certain kind of weekly behaviors and stuff like that. So what we'll do on the challenge is give you a weekly check-in, so it's accountability, you either did it or you didn't, okay? Now, it's okay if you didn't do it. So a lot of people that I've worked with on a one-to-one basis is we kind of start off with a plan, and again, it's an experiment. I don't know what's going to work for them. So we do it, and they're like, I find it really hard to do X, whatever it is. And I was like, I'm trying hard to get to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was like, okay, well, that's the wrong process for you then, okay? Because whatever's happening at home, blah, blah, blah. How about after work at 4:30 or 5? And go, okay, I'll try that. Actually, that's working really well for me. Okay, boom. Now, so failing is a good thing, okay? And we kind of tend to know this in the grand scheme of things, but when it comes to weight loss, people hate failure. They really do. They just give up straight away. Rather, failure is feedback. It's going to teach us something. If that didn't work, why didn't it work? How can I adjust it? How can I change it so that it actually does work? And the only way, again, to know it is by tracking. By giving you a deadline as well. Do it for 6 weeks, okay? There's an end goal in mind. I'm going to do this for 6 weeks. I'm going to work towards that for 6 weeks. It's not for the rest of my life and so on. To ensure you're following the plan, it's interesting that when I used to do a lot of freelance personal training in other gyms, that most of the time I'd meet someone and we'd do a session or two, and then they'd go off with the plan and come back to me a week later or 2 weeks later. And they were, okay, John, yeah, but instead of this exercise, I did that. And instead of this amount of sets, I did this. And so you didn't follow my plan. Oh, no, I did. I was like, no, if you change it. So now here's the thing, it's completely unconscious and it's not on purpose or anything like that. But this is to ensure that you're following the plan. So it says, I can give you a plan to go off and follow, but your interpretation of that, how you're doing it, if you come back to me in a couple of weeks' time, I was like, no, that's not what I meant. So this is just going to ensure that you are actually doing the right things and not misinterpreting things. Again, a lot of this stuff is very new to people. We're going to do a weekly group call, so we go through recaps, questions, motivation, and stuff like that. So again, it's something to basically check in, hold you accountable, and make sure that you're working towards getting those results. And the ultimate goal by the end of the challenge is for you to realize and kind of goes, I actually know how to keep the weight off. Everyone here, I could send you off for a week and give you a challenge of losing 7 pounds and say you're going to get 10 grand if you can lose 7 pounds in a week. How many people could do that? Yeah, right, get 10 grand, right? So it's not it's the motivation behind losing that, but the weight loss is the easy side of things. It's the keeping it off side that we need to look at. So another big part of the challenge is just to put some skin in the game, to commit to something. So the challenge is going to be €97, to basically commit to yourself and say, right, I'm actually going to invest in myself to do this. And unfortunately, with something like that, is that most people, when they have to pay for something, they're going to value it more. And if I gave it to you for free, people would value it less, and people would drop out and go, well, whatever, you know. So it helps you keep skin in the game. Now, ultimately, it's about reducing portion sizes. So how we go about doing that is we can eyeball. Unfortunately, we're not the greatest eyeballers in the world, and we can underestimate and overestimate things like that. We can eat off a smaller plate. There's lots of different ways we can do this, but ultimately getting awareness of your calories is the best thing, okay? Now, we don't have to be meticulous on this sort of thing, but we need to know how many calories are in what we're eating, or an idea of it, so that we're able to kind of go, that's ridiculously high in calories for what it does for me. I eat it and I'm not full, I'm hungry 30 minutes later, it doesn't satisfy me, and it's been 400 calories or something like that, but you thought it was maybe healthy for you, you thought it was good for you, whatever. So it's about basically coming up with your meals based on your favorite foods that you can keep within a certain number of calories over the course of your day, your week, and so on. So the awareness of calories is huge. Now, here's the thing, awareness of calories. Everyone can take out their phone and just Google how many calories are in a carrot, and it'll tell you. How many calories are in a chicken breast? It'll tell you. How many calories are in a dairy milk? It'll tell you. So it's really easy to find. When I first started studying nutrition, I had a manual that I had to open up and go through all the foods to find out how many calories are in. There were no apps. Facebook didn't even exist when I started in the fitness industry. So again, the awareness is the most important thing, right? And I'm going to show you kind of why that's so important kind of down the line. So we can weigh our food as well, but just don't be anal about it. Again, it helps us just get an awareness of our portion sizes and so on. And we can count calories, as I said, but we don't want to be anal about it. So, looking at what to eat. These two just days that I've kind of come up with in terms of what a typical day could be. Now, this isn't a meal plan. This is just me popping down what kind of general foods most people eat. So, Weetabix milk, a glass of orange juice for breakfast, some form of healthy Nature Valley bar or something, a sandwich with a ham sandwich, a salad, a pack of crisps, 2 low-calorie biscuits, and then something like spaghetti bolognese for dinner. 2 egg omelets, spinach, peppers, tomatoes, fulfilled protein bar, chicken breast, chickpea salad with broccoli, feta, celery, mixed leaves, hummus and oatcakes, and spaghetti bolognese for dinner. The difference in calories between these two is 200. This has less calories than that. Okay, so I basically created these meals off my head and put them into a calorie app, and this has more calories than that. Which one is going to leave you feeling more full? This guy, right? But it has less calories. So that's why we again do have that awareness of it, that is going just feeling full after a meal or feeling hungry after a meal isn't a sign of how many calories it contains or how many energy. It's what the food is doing to us inside, what it's made up of, and it's that protein and fiber generally will fill us up more. So again, that awareness of, people are saying like, some people actually do tell me, actually, maybe you said to me yesterday, you feel like you're eating more food, right? This can be the case. So 600 grams of strawberries is 180 calories. Here's 760 calories for a teaspoon of oil, coconut oil, peanut butter, and a couple of Ferrero Rocher. So we can eat 4 of these, 2.5 kilos of strawberries for this. We don't even notice this. Hands up, like 2.5 kilos of strawberries, right? So again, we've got to look at where these hidden calories are coming into our day. So that's the key with getting the awareness of, geez, I didn't realize there's that amount of calories in that small serving of that. I remember speaking to a member a few years ago, and she comes in, she's like, John, you'd be so proud of me. I went to the cinema with my grandkids and we brought them to McDonald's first, and I didn't eat McDonald's. So I just had a packet of jellies in the cinema. I was like, just one of the big packets. I was like, do you know how many calories in that? She said, no, let's Google it. What would you normally eat when you have McDonald's? Chicken nuggets and chips. It was less calories in chicken nuggets and chips than it was. She said, what? I thought it was being so good. I thought it was blah, blah, blah. So again, is we have these false perceptions. The only way to overcome them really, like, I can't really sit here and show you a million slides of different foods compared, blah, 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 because I don't know what your foods that you eat like. But have an awareness of that you might be eating foods that you think are good and healthy for you when you're kind of like, geez, that's a lot of calories for a very little bit of satisfaction, for something that doesn't fill you up, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like you have a calorie budget, you need to spend it wisely. Now, big problem counting calories. How we measure how many calories, and again, calories is units of heat, okay? How much energy is in a food. How we understand this, how we know this, is a machine called a bomb calorie meter. You put the food in the machine, it incinerates it and measures how much heat has been produced. That's how many calories were in that food, okay? So if we want to study apples, we get 10 apples and we put them in and we see that they have different numbers because they're different apples. And the big thing is to understand the calories, that we get such a different variance. The lowest measured in a bomb calorie meter was 83 and the highest was 116. Carrot sticks, 37 calories versus 61. Chopped tomato, 23 calories versus 49 calories. There's a big swing in difference. And here's the thing is, we don't know when we pick up that apple, whether it's a higher calorie apple or a lower calorie apple. These are the same size foods that they can measure. To keep going onto it more. 6 ounce fillet of beef. The lowest measure 323, the highest measure 506. When you buy that piece of meat, you don't know whether it's the high calorie one or the low calorie one. And it's, again, it's a different piece of meat than the one beside it, and it's simple as that. It came from a different cow or whatever. So we don't know, even to our best of our ability, if we weigh that at 6 ounces and use a calorie after blah, 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 which is just an average. So when I look at Google, how many calories are in a 6 ounce fillet, it's going to give me this number. But that number can be plus or minus, okay? And this is where it comes to some people who are kind of meticulous on calories, or you might say calorie counting doesn't work. I tried it. We don't know how many calories we're actually putting into our body. We're just making a guess, essentially. So here's the difference between white bread. Lowest at 51, highest at 78. Sweet potato. Lowest at 231, highest at 705. 3 times more calories. You might be the unlucky one that just keeps picking the higher sweet potato. Sweet potatoes are healthy for me, but do you know what I mean? So again, we can never be overly confident that we're doing meticulously the right thing, because we don't know what's coming into our body. And that's why I said we don't need to be anal about counting and tracking and stuff like that. The other thing, when we look at food labels, when I look at the label and see how many calories are in this chocolate, and it's made up of all the different ingredients, and Dairy Milk and Cadbury have to put that out and say, right, blah, blah, blah. They are allowed to be off by 20%. So 150 calories actually means between 130 and 180. The other thing that when we look at, and in America, they just after changing and bringing in a law about portion sizes. So the company was saying, oh, there's only like 200 calories in this portion size, when any normal human being is eating 3 times that size. Do you know what I mean? Like a serving of ice cream, there's only one in serving, it's a tablespoon of ice cream. So they've had to now go, what's a realistic portion size to make it more accurate in terms of what people are choosing. Because people, that's very low calories, only X per portion, but you're not eating a portion, you're eating 3 times that amount. How we cook a food changes its calories, so almost double with a raw potato to a baked potato, a raw egg to a boiled egg. And then some people have been found with a higher proportion of a certain bacteria in their body, and they absorb 150 more calories from their food per day than those with a higher proportion of a different type of bacteria in their calorie. Hands up, who knows what their bacteria in their body is like? So again, this is all of this is just to understand that we can never be over. I was there. I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything. We don't know what's happening inside our body. So you can't accurately count calories. So please don't try to. There's a difference between counting and tracking. Okay. So tracking calories is still a guess, but it's our best guess, because we get this awareness of it. So I can give you a customized plan, and I can give you a number to start on. To start on. So let's say kind of this person here, I don't know the exact details, but their weekly goal would be to maintain at 16,000 calories, which would work out 1,800 calories roughly a day. Again, don't worry too much about that. But I don't know if that's going to work. Okay, so there's formulas, we can spit that out and give you this, but it's a starting point. That's all it is a starting point. Because we've got to see, is it going to work, yes or no? It's based on, one, your body, your metabolism, how's it going. It's based on your ability to actually record and track and things like that. And if you're not used to doing recording and things like that, if you're not having awareness of how many calories are in that, how much energy is in that, you might underestimate or overestimate and that kind of thing. So it's just a starting point. If you do that for a week and you don't lose any weight, you've eaten too much. And I get some people, they're kind of like, John, I'm only eating 1,000 calories a day. Look at my MyFitnessPal, I'm only eating 1,000 calories a day. I'm not losing any weight. I'm in a calorie deficit. I promise you, I swear I'm in a calorie deficit. It's like, you're not in a calorie deficit. If you didn't lose weight, you weren't in a calorie. You're just bad at tracking. Now here's the thing, is if they're tracking 1,000 calories, eat 800. You know, track 800. Now it doesn't mean they're only eating 800 calories. If I followed them around for the day, I would probably see they're closer to the 2,000 calorie mark. They're just really bad at tracking, they don't have the skills developed, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't really matter, because if I have a number that we can change, 1,000 calories didn't work, let's change it, okay? Now obviously the idea is to fine tune and get better at these things. So this person, if they want to be in a moderate calorie deficit, they need 12,600 calories. Their maintenance is 16,000, average of roughly 1,800 a day. But I don't recommend eating the same amount of calories every day. Out of that, we can get a protein guide from that. But again, even with a protein guide, some people can get away with less protein, some people need a little bit more protein. So again, this is just a starting guide. But what I ultimately recommend, and to make this a success for you, is have higher calorie days. We plan out the week that you're going to have some lower calorie days and some higher calorie days. Days you're going to eat less, days you're going to eat more. Now there are diets out there, or kind of weight loss interventions out there. You've probably all heard of like fasting, intermittent fasting, things like that. And it's just essentially is eat less one day and eat more another day. That's as simple as that, but without having to count calories, because it's like, well, if I just don't eat for 18 hours, and going, as long as I don't have an almighty binge afterwards, and I just continue eating on the same amount, I'm going to eat less over the course of that day and potentially over the course of that week. So that's the key, is basically identifying how we can reduce our intake over the course. And as I said, is for most people, it makes more sense to have different days than to try and hit this very low number all the time. Because we have, we get invited to parties, we go out for dinner and so on and so forth. And again, we have less control over those food choices. So one of the things, let's say, with this is that this person's maintenance daily calories is 2,300. So if they're eating 1,800 a day or 1,500 a day, if they eat 2,300, they've only gone to maintenance. So just to remind you again, they've eaten more calories than what they were, but they haven't overeaten. So it gives you a big buffer in terms of how to live your life essentially. So a couple mistakes to go over if you are tracking calories. People focus too much and get obsessed with a number, sort of focus on that, and it's just like, if I don't hit that, it's not working, or I'm doing the wrong thing. Remember, it's a range, so if you're trying to hit 1,800, it's like 1,900, 1,700, it's fine, you know what I mean? They rely too much on an app. There's like, obsessed with the app and going, I've weighed everything, blah, 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 blah. It's too obsessive, it's not a long-term strategy, it's not a long-term approach. Plus, as well, as the app can be wrong as well. There's too much variety, so the big thing is if we're changing what we're eating all the time, it's very hard. It means we constantly have to check what calories in our food, but most of us, and the big thing is a lot of people say, is like, they find diets boring, yet when I see what they normally eat, it's the same things, ends up who cycle through the same couple of dinners every single week, the same breakfast, blah blah blah. But the thing is, we're eating the foods that we like. That's the boring side of things. Is that we're being made to eat foods that we don't like, and we kind of resist against it. So try not to have too much variety, because once you find the right foods and stuff like that, it can help you, each week with your food shop and preparation and so on and so forth. People that enter their calories after eating or preparing a meal. So like, well, John, I made this, kind of bolognese, blah blah blah, and it's like, how the hell am I supposed to know how many calories are in it after I've made it? So the key is to find out how many calories are in the ingredients. You put it all together, and right, that's per serving. But you only have to do it once. Once it's done once, you have an awareness of it. And the beauty about the apps is they actually save everything that you're doing. So you can just go back to the meals that you used to eat. They weigh everything all the time. So like I showed you with the fillet, 6 ounce fillet, different calories, blah, 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 blah. You don't need to weigh it every time. For 6 ounces, 5.5 ounces, 6.5 ounces, it doesn't matter. We can't be precise in terms of knowing how many calories are in that. So if you get a sense of your chicken breasts weigh about 150 grams from the butchers you go to, or Tesco, or whatever you're getting it from, then a chicken breast is 150 grams. So I have 150 grams of chicken every time I have chicken. Do you know what I mean? I don't have to weigh it over and over and over and over again. People avoid entering their bad days. Okay, big thing. So Claire's smiling there in the background. So it's like, again, it's like you're trying to ignore it. But the beauty about it, if you record your bad days, one, they might not seem so bad, because you're like, well, my maintenance is actually 2,300 and I only ate 2,200. So I didn't actually go over my maintenance number. I didn't go into a huge surplus. I'm not going to gain massive amount. I didn't ruin my diet. But you can't know that unless you actually record your bad days. Now sometimes those bad days are, we go out and we're having a load of drinks and stuff like that, so very hard. But just get an estimate of it, okay? And don't go easy on yourself. Do you know what I mean? You didn't have 2 glasses of wine, you had 4. Right? You didn't have 4 bottles of beer, you had 6, right? But just put it in. So the best way is to overestimate that kind of stuff, because then it'll give you a sense of, okay, well, that's how many calories I eat, and that's how many I need to offset now on the other days during the week. And that if you go out for dinner and you're having desserts and you're having blah, 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 overestimate all of those so that you can have that buffer. Do you need to count calories? Absolutely not. I've had loads of people get results without counting calories, but we do need an awareness of them, okay? If you've no idea how, you'll be scratching your head going, I don't know why I'm not losing weight, I don't know. So having an awareness of what's in your food. It does give you an accountability side of things in terms of knowing exactly kind of roughly where you're at, and it gives you something to assess and adjust. So simply recording your food can do that for you as well. Right, so best practices for if you are tracking calories. Make a plan, okay? So again, don't be reactive to it, try and be proactive to it. How many calories am I going to eat over the course of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, blah, blah, blah. Where am I going? What have I got on this week? Am I going out? Am I going to go to the cinema? Am I going blah, blah, blah? What are the foods I like eating, and how am I going to put them in so I know how many calories are in them, so I can then eat less calories at other times? When do I eat the most calories? Is it for breakfast? Is it for dinner? Is it blah, blah, blah? Practice makes perfect. So you're never going to be, what I tell is counting calories isn't an exact science. It's like an art form. You got to get better at it as you're going through it. And then it becomes fairly easy. It's not hard. It's kind of inconvenient initially at the start. You're like, oh, how many calories? Well, again, once you've done it for one food and you eat the same, once you've done it for a week or two, it's basically plug and play, and kind of keep it going. So putting in a bit of work at the start can help massively. Enter your bad days, know where your high calorie foods are coming from, because there's no point in, let's say, I need to reduce my intake. Well, I'll eat half a chicken breast. And it's like, that's about 80 calories. Do you know, like, it's not going to make a big difference. Whereas we saw the oils, do you know what I mean? It's actually, if I can kind of know that, Jesus, there's a lot of oil being put in the preparation of that meal, let's substitute that out for something else, then we can drastically reduce our intake. Again, there's no need to weigh all the time, especially with low calorie foods. Like you saw the strawberries, a punnet of strawberries. So whether that's 600 grams or 500 grams or 400 grams of strawberries, it's only 180 calories. The difference in 20, 30 calories is not the difference between you losing weight or not. So we don't need to weigh our foods all the time and be like, what we do need, most important things, track what we do so we can assess whether it's working or not. Is the average daily, average weekly weight going down? If it is, yes. If it's not, then it's a sign we need to adjust something, we need to reduce our intake. Eating similar meals repeated. So once we have a kind of sense of, okay, these foods can fit into my plan, then we kind of repeat it. And it's much easier then to enter into an app or to record. You can, with the apps, you can enter recipes and meals in advance. So I said, if we're going to have a takeaway, it's like, don't have the takeaway. Oh, I wonder how many, oh shit. Do it beforehand. It's like, right, if I ordered this, that's going to be X amount of calories. Well, if I had then half the tub of rice, or shared this with such and such, oh, I can eat a 1500 calorie takeaway, and I've only eaten 500 calories the rest of the day. That fits into my plan. You know, and once again, you do it once, you know what works for you. The key is having low and high days, low and high weeks, low and high months. We kind of already do this, but it's subconscious, and we'd have way more of the higher days, and then we end up not being able to lose weight, or we end up gaining weight over the course of the years. So it's just to be, if you put some structure on it and plan those low calorie days better to offset your higher days. And again, coming back to track, assess, and adjust. So the question is it working? If yes, keep going. If no, adjust it down by about 10 or 20% and track again, and we find your magic number. So as I said, is you can open up, there's an app called MyFitnessPal, you can open up MyFitnessPal, you can put in your weight loss goal. Don't do that, because your weight loss goal could be, I want super fast results, so I'm going to lose 10 pounds in the next 4 days, and it'll tell you how much to eat in order to do that. But that's not realistic. It's going to basically tell you just starve yourself, don't eat anything at all. And so what we've got to do is we just track, get a number. Is it working, yes or no? If no, we've got to eat a lower number. Does that make sense? So, eyeballing your food. So this is very closely related to calories, okay? So which is a really good thing, because again, this is more long term, it's about knowing what's on your plate. So we look at our plate, a serving of protein, roughly your palm size. So if we look at that 6 ounce fillet or something like that, roughly that size for me. A serving of vegetables, so we want to get more veg, more fibre in. That's the size of vegetables we want to put onto our plate for one serving. A serving of carbs, that I can fit it in here, not stacked this high, okay, fits into my hand. And a serving of fats, of the oils and stuff like that, okay? Now, so when we're looking at a meal, we can kind of, go, what's gone into that? And if you can think that, Jesus, well, in terms of how many of those of rice am I having with the curry? It's probably about 6 of those, right? And if you get an awareness of, I'm having 6 of those every time I have rice, and you then start having 4 of them, you're eating less food. So you've now restricted your calories based on what you did last week, because it didn't work last week, you had 6 of those. Now I have 4 of them every time I have rice, and it goes on. Now obviously not, you don't have to scrunch up your bread and fit it in, and how much is a slice of bread, blah, blah, blah. But just to get that awareness and overall appreciation to it. These are the main areas you're not going to reduce your calorie intake by your 5th serving of vegetables, okay? So don't reduce that, increase that if anything, right? Your serving of carbs, your 1 cup tan, and your serving of fats, 1 ton. So trying to identify how many of those servings you're having in a meal, and then reduce it down. Again, it's not an exact science, so you just kind of have to say, how much oil are we putting in when we're cooking that? Okay, well, if I measure a teaspoon instead of just the free pour type of thing, or the sprays, calorie sprays, low calorie sprays, you get them, just spray the oil, or don't use any oil at all. Butter on bread, like the amount, you've no idea if you actually count. Best way to weigh butter, by the way, just for those who like counting calories, stuff like that, is you get the tub of butter, and you put it on the weighing scales. Then you take the butter you're using off that and put it on your bread. The difference then is in that, because you can't take it off. I'm going to try and weigh this on the bread, or how am I going to? So you put the peanut butter, right? So you have the tub of peanut butter on the weighing scales. You take your teaspoon and put it in, or your knife, put it in, take it out. Oh, that was 30 grams. 30 grams of peanut butter is how many calories? You soon realize that those kind of things, the butter, the peanut butter, and stuff like that, they're very high in calories, and yet we lash them on a huge amount. So again, we can reduce them down a lot when we actually have that awareness of them. I think so. What this looks like on a plate, you know what I mean? Now, I know a lot of meals, can be. And here's the thing: I can easily eat a meal that looks something like that. It's just a piece of meat, some veg, and some carbohydrate. Just boom, 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 and I'm happy with that. My wife, Kira, hates that type of food. She wants the sauces and she wants the blah blah blah. Now, with stuff like this, it's very easy to eyeball it. When you're having like a chicken curry, it's like, well, how much protein is in that? Blah, blah. So again, we're just estimating, we're having a rough idea. Again, if it's the same recipe week in, week out, once we get the hang of one, we know then to reduce it down and trying to change it. So generally for men, a good way to kind of start off is if we're having 2 cup-sized portions, there's about 40 to 60 grams of carbs, there's a calorie number to that. So if I wanted to lose weight, and as I said, as I was having 6 of those a day, and I have 4 of them a day, then I've eaten less than I did the week before, and so on. And then for females, is 1, and so on. Again, with your fats, kind of thing. So, so when we're looking at snacks and treats, okay, because foods like this, how many thumbs or fat are in this? That we don't know, okay? So that's where we're getting the awareness of calories. Using Google, how many calories are in a dairy milk, how many calories are in a portion. So like this comes out at, there's 140 calories in half a bar, which is a serving size. Who's having 2 servings? Oh, right, that's 1 serving. Okay, it's probably half a serving now. The big bars are a serving probably now at this stage. But again, with food is the sharing size bags and the sharing. Don't be sharing them. The portions of foods have gone up and up and up. So and if you ever go to America and you see the portion sizes there, and they have the calories on the menu, it's just insane the size of the portions that they serve, because it's kind of like value for money. It's like the bigger the portion, the more value that is really. Unfortunately, it becomes very hard then to eat less thing. But having an awareness of, so read the label and identify, half a bar is 140. That means when I eat the full bar, I'm eating 300 calories. Can I afford to eat those 300 calories today on top of all my other meals and all the other foods that I'm going to eat? Calorie apps again will give you the same. And again, the stated serving size, I already spoke about. America brought out a new law about the labeling in terms of that, because they kind of know that just people, they're being misled by the food labels. So, I did speak about it doesn't matter about what you eat as long as you eat the right amount, but the right food choices can help you eat the right amount. So we're looking at hunger, cravings, are you missing out, restriction, social side of things. So I remember working with, a few years ago now, her husband unfortunately was dying with cancer, and she enjoyed a glass of wine with her husband every evening. And she went to another place beforehand and they told her to cut out alcohol. They didn't realise what that was actually meant to her. It's cut out quality time with your husband. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely not. So the things with the social side of things is, again, is if we feel like we're being restricted, we can't do things, we can't interact with society because I'm on a diet, it really impacts our ability to stay on plan and to stick with the plan. So what you eat, as I said, does matter. Minimize your hunger, minimize your cravings by allowing yourself to eat your favorite foods and things like that. And avoid the missing out sensation or the restriction sensation. And someone says you can go out, you can be social, you can have drinks and still get results. So what fills you up? So generally things like high fiber foods like whole grains and vegetables and stuff like that. This isn't a given, again, it's an individual thing. So building up an awareness of that to know, actually that was a really filling meal, and cheapest, it was only 400 calories in that. As opposed to I used to eat a meal and it was 700 calories and I wasn't filled up as much. High volume, low calories, that's the picture of the strawberries that I showed you. Okay, so huge volume of food for a very low calorie thing. So it's how you spend your calories wisely. Baby potatoes as well. Potatoes get an awful bad rap. If you actually know the calories in potatoes, you get a lot of potatoes for very low calories. The issue comes then is if you're frying them in oil and turning them into chips, or you're putting a load of butter into mashed potatoes, that's where the calories come from. But it's not the actual potato themselves. The high protein foods, meats, fish, pulses like beans and stuff like that, and even the makeup of the food. So thick soups, soup is going to have, again, watching out for the creams and things like that going into it, but you can make a vegetable soup that's very thick that will satisfy you and keep you going and fill you up and help you reduce your calorie intake. What satisfies your cravings? So, I worked with a guy who was addicted to biscuits, like absolutely addicted to biscuits, and he started off, before I met him, he was at over 20 stone, been diagnosed with a brain tumour, and lost a considerable amount of weight, but then got stuck and was hit in a plateau. And when he contacted me to help him, he sent me his diet and that he was on, and the diet was an 1800 calorie a day diet, and the guy was about, I think he was 16 or 17 stone starting with me. He was on an 1800 calorie a day diet, which most females can lose weight at 1800 calories a day. And this guy's a kind of fairly large man, loved his weight training and things like that. So his diet was also made up of like boiled white fish, steamed broccoli, and blah blah blah. And it was a meal plan. And it was like, this is what you're to eat for blah, and there was no flexibility in it at all. and he loved his biscuits. So he would be able to stick to that diet for certain periods of time, and it worked. He was losing weight while he was sticking with that, and he was losing weight quickly while he was sticking with that diet. The problem was, is what happened when he got his massive urges for his biscuits. He'd drive down to the local garage, buy 2 or 3 packets of biscuits, and eat them all in one sitting, because he's been depriving himself for 3 or 4 weeks because of that, okay? So again, it's not the biscuits, it's the fact that he deprived himself so much. So part of his plan, the only food I told him to actually eat was his favourite biscuits, which was Jaffa Cakes, and he was to eat 4 Jaffa Cakes every single night at 9 p.m. So this is when I assess, when do you get the cravings, when do you blah, blah, blah. He ate 4 Jaffa Cakes at 9 p.m. every night and lost another 2 stone. And I had to force him to eat them, do you know what I mean? But because he was allowed to have them every night, what happened was, as we got through it, he started going, 4 Jaffa Cakes about 200 calories. And he was eating, and he was also eating 2,500 calories a day, not 1,800. So he was putting in way more food, a lot easier to eat that kind of level of calories. And the other thing then, that what he started to do was like, John, is it okay if I start having 2 or 3 biscuits a night instead of the 4? Yeah, of course. You know, I mean, do you? John, some nights I don't really want them anymore. Do I have to have them? It was like, no, you're good. Because he's got this handle on, got this control. But a lot of the times, if I tell you, do not think about Michael Jackson, whatever you do, stop thinking about Michael Jackson. I told you not to think about Michael Jackson. Don't think you're thinking about Michael Jackson. So when we say, I'm not going to eat chocolate, I'm definitely not going to eat chocolate. I'm going to go off chocolate all week and chocolate. So your body is just picturing images of chocolate and what it's going to taste like and blah, blah, blah. So what we need to do is to, again, allow ourselves these. There is no such thing as a bad or a fattening food or anything like that. We can, as long as we fit it into our calories, we can eat whatever we want. And so there's, in terms of like people who love crisps, there are packets of crisps that you can get very, like less than 100 calories in, and there are packets of crisps that you can get 250 and 300 calories from. So again, choose your, how you're going to spend those. Plan your meals around what you like eating. Generally what I'd recommend is a little of what you fancy, so the 10 to 20% of your daily calories. So with the Ian, who was the biscuit guy, he was eating 2,500 calories a day. 200 calories a day came from Jaffa Cakes. So 10% or whatever. And again, you can kind of bump it up a little bit depending on the food. But do avoid uncontrollable food. So I love cake. Apple pies and Black Forest gateaux and all sorts of stuff like that. So if we have cake in the house, it's not lasting very long, okay? I'm eating big slices of it and I don't want to throw it out either, you know what I mean? So it's going to have to be eaten pretty quickly, okay? So I don't have cake in the house a lot of the time. And I love cereal as well, okay? And this was from when I was growing up. For a while, even after I'd moved out of my parents' house, every time I came back home, I would just gravitate towards our cereal press and open it up and pull out the cereal and make myself a bowl of cereal, no matter what time of the day it was. And again, it wasn't for breakfast, I would just eat cereal at random times. But there are certain cereals that don't last very long, so Crunchy Nut cornflakes, right? If I buy a packet of Crunchy Nut cornflakes, I know when I'm buying that packet in the shop that that's not lasting much more than 24 hours in my house because I'm going to eat it, okay? I'm going to have 2 or 3 bowls every time I pour a bowl. I just don't have the control over that. The ads are true in that. Trouble is they taste too good. The old ads, they're not even on TV anymore, are they? Ads on TV. So the thing is, some people have trigger foods. So if you have trigger foods that you can't control, that you open a packet, you know that packet's going to be gone. Again, just be wise in terms of, and admit that if you're going to buy it, you're planning on eating a lot. And I love ice cream as well. So again, if I buy a tub of Ben and Jerry's, it's going to be gone. It's not lasting the week. So if I do a weekly food shop, I'm doing a weekly food shop, not a once-off treat shop, because I'll eat the ice cream that day, and then I'll want ice cream 3 or 4 days later, and I'll go to the shop and buy it again. So I'm going to increase my calories. So they're my trigger foods, let's say. We all have them, so we've got to be able to identify. Now, funny enough, with Ian, the guy with the Jaffa Cakes, his trigger foods, in one sense, were biscuits, but it was because he wasn't allowed to have any biscuits at all that they became a trigger food for him, and that we were able to modify and manage that 4 biscuits, and he was absolutely fine having them. You know. And then the age-old question is Jaffa Cake a biscuit or a cake? They actually won a tax lawsuit or something like that because there's no VAT on cakes, there's VAT on biscuits. So they had to prove that Jaffa Cake was a cake, but they didn't pay VAT on there. So, ultimate experiment. How can you eat the highest amount you can while still losing weight? You already know how to minimize and eat the lowest amount you can and still lose weight. How can you actually eat the highest amount you can and still lose weight? That is the goal. Thanks, Ursula. Understanding that this is variable, so your body may adjust what it's putting out. So we don't overreact. Or so 1 week's worth of tracking and measuring and stuff like that. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't want to overcorrect and kind of swing completely the opposite direction. Gathering as much data, understanding what works for your body as much as possible, and then making these small individual adjustments. There are things where I've helped people with I didn't change anything on my food plan and I stopped losing weight. And then I look at it and I was like, actually, you started having cereal for breakfast and you were having scrambled eggs for breakfast. And you were having scrambled eggs and you were losing weight. And cereal's not. And this was, we weren't even counting calories. It was just, but you went from this to this and it stopped working. Go back to that and went back to that and I started losing weight again. So now it's a small adjustment. I don't know. Again, what's the knock-on effect of having the cereal? Was there more cravings after? Was there more hungry after it? What size was the cereal? All this kind of sort of stuff I didn't know, but it's like if that was working, keep doing it. If it's not working, change something. But subtle change is more so than things. So here's a couple of scenarios that we can look at then when we're trying to go about and get results. So as I said, the average weight, if it's down by 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week, you're on track. You're doing really well. They are the good results. They are fast results. Keep going with that. The other thing with fast results as well is, yes, you can go more than that, but what's the cost of that? It means you have to eat less. It means you have to burn off more. Are you willing to, if you want an extra pound of fat, are you willing to take another 3,500 calories out of your week after you've already taken out 3,500 calories? So there's a cost of it.